Voting in a pandemic can be deadly. Maybe that's the way Republicans want it. Scare people away. Anyhow, vote by mail is the solution. We need to do it. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. So are we going to vote in November? In 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to start seeing people in Wisconsin showing up in Milwaukee and Madison and rural hospitals with coronavirus because they went out and voted yesterday. And a week after that, in 3 weeks from now, you're going to start seeing some of those folks show up. Well, now they're not going to show up. They're needing respirators. And a week after that, you're going to see some of those folks dying. Because Robin Vos, the Speaker of the House or Assembly or whatever it's called in Wisconsin, basically the head Republican in Wisconsin, the guy who went out dressed like a moonwalk and said, everything is safe, just go vote. Because he does not want Democrats to vote. It's really just that simple. I mean, this is all about voter suppression. And it's quite obvious now that Robin Vos in Wisconsin and the entire Wisconsin Republican Party and the Republicans on the Wisconsin Supreme Court and the 5 conservatives on the U.S. Supreme Court don't give a rat's ass about who dies as long as the Republican Party can continue holding power. More Democrats than Republicans showed up to vote in the last 2 elections in Wisconsin. And yet, more than half of all the votes went to Democrats in Wisconsin. And yet, 5 out of their 8 members of Congress are Republicans. And Republicans control both their state assembly, their House of Representatives, and their Senate. This is all about power. This was a project. This was one of the pet projects of the coulc network and the billionaire buddies who heavily funded Scott Walker and put this useful idiot into power in Wisconsin. And they've done absolutely everything they can to hold that power against the will of the majority of the voters in the state of Wisconsin. This is their plan for America. And if we don't start passing federal legislation soon, these red states, these Republican-controlled states, they are not going to change their laws, their rules, and their policies. You've got 17 states where you basically have to have a doctor's slip or an excuse in order to get a vote-by-mail ballot. Here in Oregon, we've been voting by mail for decades. In Washington State, they've been doing it for years. It works really, really well. We have virtually no fraud, and what few fraudulent voters there are relatively easily detected. Donald Trump votes by mail, although, lying through his teeth again yesterday. He was like, well, this is fraud. No, it's not fraud, and it's not promoting fraud. It's not helping fraud or anything like that. Vote by mail is how we actually can get an election done in the middle of a pandemic. This is very straightforward stuff. This is not rocket science. It doesn't, require any kind of deep analysis. And yet, here you've got the chairwoman of the Republican Party. This is Ronna Romney McDaniel, Mitt Romney's niece, I believe she is, saying that Democrats want to promote mail-in voting, quote, as their next attempt to use the pandemic for political gain. She said, quote, this would vastly expand opportunities for fraud and weaken confidence in our elections. Pardon those of us who thought we already had democratic elections. No, when you're disenfranchising millions of people, when you're throwing 500,000 or more people off the voting rolls in Georgia just before the election, when you throw 200,000 people off the voting rolls in Wisconsin just before the election, when you throw a couple 100,000 people off the voting rolls in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Michigan just before the election, that's not a democratic election, small d. Ronna McDaniel goes on to say, the Democrats' all-mail ballots proposal is a ruse to legalize ballot harvesting nationwide. This is BS. She goes on to say, any person would be allowed to return an unlimited number of absentee ballots for voters, opening the door for political operatives to deliver ballots in bulk. Well, yeah, that's the same thing. This is the same thing as offering rides to the polls. But see, oh my God, Democrats might get organized. and, go around and collect people's ballots to turn them in and make it easy for people so they don't have to come up with a stamp. She says they could even be paid as long as he or she is not paid based on the number of ballots returned. Right, there's nothing wrong with that. Just like there's nothing wrong with offering people free rides to the polls, which another thing that the Republicans hate. In fact, Donald Trump says, buses of black people went from Massachusetts to New Hampshire to vote against him, which is why he lost the primary in New Hampshire in 2016. No, he lost the primary because everybody knows he's a fool and a buffoon. It's just amazing. So the Republican Party, they're still following Paul Weyrick's mantra. I don't want everybody to vote. Our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down. You can find my rant on all this, by the way, over at buzzflash.com. The Republican Party has made it quite clear that they don't care what the fallout is from their voter suppression efforts, even if that includes people dying of coronavirus, as long as they can prevent people from voting. That's their thing. That's what they're all about.